My name is Samantha Miller, and I am doing my final project on the March for Science. I chose to do my project on the March for Science organization because science is one of the biggest components of my identity. Ever since I was in the first grade, I have known that I want to study biology. Unfortunately, in our current political climate, science has been forced into competition with alternative facts, and in cases such as climate change, completely disregarded and heralded as false. I joined the March for Science organization 2 years ago to protect not only the field that I love, but the world itself. March for Science was founded on January 24, 2017, when multiple social media-based conversations about a scientists' march on Washington merged together, becoming the March for Science. Less than a day after the idea had gone viral, the March for Science became a fully fledged international movement, accumulating 30,000 volunteers and tens of thousands of followers. These numbers continued to grow after the official organization was founded. The national co-chairs and around 40,000 volunteers worked to plan the first official March for Science. The March for Science website proclaims, on April 22, 2017, more than 1 million people in more than 600 locations across all 7 continents joined together in the single largest event in support of science in history. They also provide reasons to march, listing share the desire for evidence to play a central role in policymaking, support the advancement of scientific research that improves our health, strengthens our economy, powers technological innovation, inspires individuals and communities, contribute to the shared human work of better understanding the world around us, support a diverse and inclusive scientific community, strengthen the relationship between scientists and their communities, expanding the practice and discussion of science from labs and scientific conferences into middle schools and community centers. Their mission states, the March for Science champions robustly funded and publicly communicated science as a pillar of human freedom and prosperity. We unite as a diverse, nonpartisan group to call for science that upholds the common good, and for political leaders and policymakers to enact evidence-based policies in the public interest. I first learned about March for Science through Twitter when I began following science activists after the 2016 election. Many, if not all of the accounts I followed, encouraged their followers to participate in this march. I quickly became intrigued, shared the march with my friends, and before I knew it, we were coming up with witty poster sayings and planning our trip. When we arrived in Fresno for the march, we found a park full of booths and people of all demographics roaming around, commenting on each other's picket signs and sharing their stories. Groups from various organizations, such as the Coalition Advocating for Pesticide Safety and Peace Fresno, were there and had set up informational booths. Eventually, we all gathered towards one end of the park and began walking towards a highly trafficked intersection. While we walked, my friends and I talked to the people nearby and learned about their backgrounds and why they were there. Many people were scientists and professors fighting to protect their livelihoods and truths, but there was a fair amount of people who didn't work in a STEM field. We met parents who wanted a better, educated future for their children, people who had survived illnesses such as polio and cancer and didn't want the science behind their improved health to go ignored, relatives of people who had survived such illnesses, and people who could see the direction our nation was, and still is, headed in, and felt the need to help turn it around. Some people used the march as an excuse to protest for multiple causes, such as this woman whose drawing of Earth is wearing a hat from the Pussy Hat Project, and is simultaneously protesting for women's rights and science. I was surprised to learn that not all of the people marching had left-leaning political views. I had associated this march with fighting Donald Trump and his anti-science policies, but it had not occurred to me that Republicans could hold the same concerns as I did. The March for Science truly is as they claim, a nonpartisan organization. At this event, I learned just how true Neil deGrasse Tyson's quote, "The good thing about science is that it's true whether or not you believe in it, is. Science can be ignored, but it will always reveal itself to be true." We marched because we want science to be accepted and integrated into policymaking before anti-science believers are forced to see the truth, because by then, it will be too late to save the planet. The March for Science organization doesn't stop when the march is over. Their website makes it easy to contact representatives and elected officials about any issue, whether science-related or not. They have also created outreach programs, easy outreach event planning, and advocacy guides to help their supporters continue to make progress. These branches of the organization help negate some of the disadvantages of protesting, allowing advocates to continue advancing towards their goal after the end of the demonstration. Additionally, as a nonpartisan organization, March for Science has drastically increased their capacity for impact by not excluding any political parties. However, because they do not have a specific, concrete goal, the organization may be fated to the same doom as the suffragist movement from the 1890s. Both movements were disorganized and didn't focus on a particular way to achieve their goal. While bombarding political members with emails from constituents and making the organization's presence known may be effective in some instances, it does not seem to be the most efficient way to accomplish change. If the March for Science organization were to create multiple statewide branches, the branches could work to convince state legislators to have a more scientific focus and fight for policies reflective of that view. This would definitely be beneficial in states that have less scientifically oriented legislature, such as Texas, which permits some publicly funded schools to teach creationism and not evolution. The March for Science organization is very non-confrontational, which may be a downfall as they have nothing to threaten political leaders with. However, in terms of their non-policy related goals, such as building a scientific community and empowering the public with science, it seems as though the March for Science's current methodology has been effective. The March for Science website claims the following victories. Together, we science advocates have gotten out the hashtag Vote for Science and contributed to the highest midterm voter turnout in a century, ran for office in record numbers, helped stop cuts to science funding and the graduate student tax, defeated attacks to science education at the state level, and regularly kept our leaders accountable through our national campaigns. Several historians, including professors from Stanford University and the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, have been cited calling the March for Science historically unprecedented. They mean that while scientists have always argued in defense of their findings, and even disputed in a political context, there has never been a mass movement in defense of science before. Thus, regardless of the downfalls of the March for Science organization, they are still making history, and I personally believe that it is for the better. Thank you. If you want to learn more about the March for Science or contribute to the movement, visit www.marchforscience.com. Thank you.